Now, earlier today, the UK announced more than 50 further sanctions against Russia ahead of the second anniversary of the invasion of Ukraine. It comes as Alexei Navalny's mother was finally given access to see her son's body, where she then accused Russian investigators of planning to bury her son in secret without a funeral. Let's bring in now Executive Director of National Security think tank, the Henry Jackson Society, Dr. Alan Mendoza. Alan, a very good evening to you. Welcome to the Independent Republic. Thanks for joining us. On the second anniversary, as we know, of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, I was just reminded that on your Twitter it says that you've been placed on the official sanctions list of the Russian Republic for collecting and analysing information for fighting Russia. So you're still one of the bad guys as far as they're concerned.
Well, yes. I wish it was an exclusive club, but actually the Russians have attempted to, obviously sanction a lot of people in the UK, MPs, campaigners, people looking for justice in Russian human rights supporters. So it's a growing ban, but I think everyone who's in that band is quite happy to be taking it to Mr. Putin at every opportunity we can.
Yes, and there's a lot of questions, though, about sanctions and whether they've been working, whether putting any more sanctions will make any difference. Putin appears at the moment to be doing whatever the hell he likes, doesn't he?
Well, the problem we face with sanctions is that we haven't, as was announced today, 50 more new sanctions. Well, why haven't we put them on already? It seems strange 2 years into the war, we are still finding new sanctions to put on. So, number one, why hasn't our coverage been 100% so far? And secondly, of course, even if our coverage and all the free world's coverage is 100%, we still have a lot of other agents who are willing to support Putin by buying his oil, buying his goods, and keeping him going for another way. So it's only ever going to be a temporary measure. But, Mike, sanctions never solved anything on their own. In reality, you always need multiple points of pressure to bring a result you want to bear in international relations.
So looking at the war having been going on for 2 years, an awful lot of money going to Ukraine from here, from the United States as well, from the EU. Where are we, if we can say where we are, in a year from now? Will it still be going on? Will there be some kind of tipping point? What do you think?
Well, a lot depends on what happens this year in terms of that supply. So it is true, you're right, we've spent a lot of money in the past, we've supplied weapons in the past. But in order for Ukraine to keep on going toe-to-toe with a much numerically superior force, the Russians, who can replenish equipment much more easily as well, we have to keep on giving them the kit to do so. All the evidence has told us in the past that when we give the Ukrainians the kit to finish the job, they're able to do it. And when we don't do it, they can't do it. So really, Mike, that answer is down to us. Are we and our allies willing to supply Ukraine with what it needs in the coming months to win this war, or are we not? And if we don't, we'll only have ourselves to blame when Mr. Putin comes knocking on Eastern Europe's door next.
Yeah, and when we see all the focus on Gaza at the moment, when we saw what we saw in the House of Commons yesterday, there hasn't really ever been a plan put into place internationally, has there, for a ceasefire in Ukraine, for example, or for some kind of form of a truce, or some kind of form of an agreement that could be signed around a table? Because the West, thus far, has seen Russia only as the invader and only as somebody that has to be beaten.
But Russia is only the invader. That's what it is. Yeah. It's not a negotiating partner that you can say has got some rightful claims here. That's not what's happened. What they've done is they've crossed international borders, used armed force to try and secure territory. And Mike, in those conditions, anything short of a Russian, sort of agreement to withdraw their forces back to where they were before this war began is not going to fly. And if you do reward aggression in that way, what's to stop any other aggressor saying, well, you know what, I'll go over the border of my neighbour, I'll win a bit of land here, and the West and others will give me what I want within 2-3 years if I just hang it out. That's not a solution for global peace, is it?
No, it certainly isn't. And have you got any worries about what happens with NATO over the coming year and the coming 2 years? Obviously waiting to see what happens with the new president. I mean, I'm not one of those that thinks that Donald Trump means it when he says he's going to encourage Russia to actually invade NATO countries that don't pay their way. It looks like what he said worked, and they are now paying their way.
Well, I'm with you on that. I think, he's got an unorthodox way about him on issues like this. I don't believe he would stand by if NATO allies were attacked. But at the same time, it's quite right that NATO and European powers must pay their way in defence because the world is becoming ever more complicated. And the only way that we can meet the challenges that are ahead of us is by spending the requisite amount on defence. If we don't do that, once again, we will be the authors of our own demise. So it's incumbent on every NATO member, every free world country to maximise its defence expenditure right now, because every penny spent on prevention and deterrence is much better than spending pounds on fighting wars.